Hey, hello students. This is Miss Jo. I'm going to show you how to complete the 4.3 assignment in our chemistry class. The 4.3 assignment, if it does not show up in your to-do list or you can't find it here for some reason, I highly recommend you find your assignments in modules. Modules tab shows you the order I want you to go to do assignments. So 4.3 assignment is based on the notes from 4.3 Learn and 4.2 Investigation. So you can find the answers there. Let's look at the assignment. The assignment, you do need a periodic table and the 4.3 Learn specifically, but you can get some notes for 4.2 Learn Investigation as well. But you're going to click on the assignment in the middle if you have not opened it yet. It will force you to make a copy of the assignment. And then you can either rename this copy once it appears. So you can rename this copy to your name or whatnot, but otherwise I should be able to find your assignment anyway. Okay, so the first page here or first slide here is a title slide. You're going to recreate the periodic table, or rather you're going to zoom in on the first 3 rows of the periodic table. All you're doing is answering the slides in slide 3 and slide 4. You're going to answer everything that has a blue box. So let me go ahead and give you a few answers that I find most students were just confused where to find the answers, and we'll start with there. So I'm just going to zoom in because it's easier to see. So group here, what is the definition of a group? So the groups are these columns on the periodic table. We're skipping the middle columns here. We're going to focus only on these columns here. They have a easier to understand pattern. So these columns on the periodic table, you could just say group or columns. Okay, group number, what do the group numbers tell you? So if you're paying attention to the lessons or the reading, it did tell you that each group number, for example, this is group 1, these are group 1 elements, they give you the number of valence electrons. You can see when you compare, protons are different numbers, neutrons are different numbers, the total number of electrons are different as well. The only thing that these elements have in common is the number of outermost electrons, which are called your valence electrons. So all I did was just type or click on the blue box, and then you should be able to type in it automatically. Okay, next part, period. As you can see, you have 7 periods. These are your rows on the periodic table, so you can type in rows. A period is a row on the periodic table. The period number, what do the number, again, this is found in the notes, but here's an example. In period 1, you have this element. Period 2, here's an example element. And period 3, you have an example element. So it's not proton number because the proton number does not match with the period number. Neutron number does not match either. Total number of electrons does not match either. And then it did get cut off, but it's not the valence electrons. That was told by the group number. It's actually these shells, these orbits that the electrons are in. So you can see there's 1 electron shell. Here you have 2 electron shells, and here you have 1, 2, 3 electron shells. They match with the number of periods. So here you write electron shells. They're also called energy levels. I'm going to type that here because it fits better. Or you can type the word shells. Okay. Valence electrons, I hope you know the definition of valence electrons. I'll leave that one for you. Octet rule, this was not quite in the 4.2 or 4.3 notes. This was actually mentioned back in module 2. So every atom or element wants a complete, oops, I can't spell complete, wants a complete valence, or also known as outermost shell. Okay, so here you can see examples. These have complete outermost shells, while on this side they have incomplete outermost shells or valence shells. And how do you know which one is full? If you only have 1 shell, your first shell is always 2 electrons. So you can see these innermost first shell, it's always 2 electrons. You always start on the inside and then go out. Second shell has 8 electrons would be complete. So here you can see there's only 2 electrons, while here you only have 5 electrons. And then third shell would also be 8. We won't have 18 electrons in this slideshow. 18 electrons would be when you have a number greater than an electron number greater than 18. Right now we only go up to 18. Okay, so with that, hopefully you kind of have an idea of how to complete the assignment. You just click in the blue boxes and answer the questions. I can show you how to do the chart as well. So here you're going to look at the periodic table, find this element, and then answer these questions. Does this atom satisfy the octet rule? That's pretty much look over here and see, does it, if it only has one shell, does it have 2 electrons? If it has more than one shell, does it have 8 valence electrons? It needs to be valence electrons, these outermost electrons. The number of valence electrons you can find by counting how many outermost electrons there are. So like this one, you can there are 2 outermost electrons. Here I have 1, 2, 3, 4 outermost electrons. Okay. For the group number and period number, again, you're going to find this element on the periodic table. How do you find this element? Remember your proton number, this P plus, your proton number is your ID number. So if I look for the element that has 2 protons, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this periodic table, which I included for you so you can reference it. Element number 2, here's number 1, here's number 3, so number 2 must be on the other side. Element number 2 is helium. It's in the 18th group, 18th column, and unfortunately the period number is on the left side, so I'm going to scroll back. Helium is in that first row, the first period. So you're going to write, oops, group 18, period 1. And I might as well solve this for you as well. This is yes. Helium only has 1 shell, and 1 shell is fine with 2 electrons. Okay, so with that, you should be able to answer these other questions. How do you find the group number of an atom? I just kind of showed you, same thing with the period. What information does it tell you? It's in this corner over here. We just answered it in the definitions. Tell me what are valence electrons and what does it mean for an atom to satisfy the octet rule? So you can just answer these based on everything else that we answered. Okay, the next slide. This one seems a little more challenging, but it's actually, again, just to show me that, yes, you can manipulate, you know what the periodic table looks like. So here, you just follow these directions here, okay? So step 1, it tells you to fill in the group and period numbers along the sides. So your group numbers are at the top here. This is group 1. Again, you can look on the periodic table if you're not sure. Here's group 2. So you can see, okay, where's magnesium? It's in the second group. It goes in order. Again, you're creating or just copying over the periodic table. We skip the middle column, so this should be group 13. So hopefully you can fill the rest of these by yourself. On the sides, you're going to put in the period numbers. This is period 1, period 2, and so forth and so on. Step 2, place the Bohr models. So these pictures right here, these are Bohr models. Here's another way to draw Bohr models. It's pretty much, it's named after the scientist named Niels Bohr, and he created the simplified version of drawing an atom where you show your protons and neutrons sometimes, and you show how many electrons are around it. So it's an easy way to look at an atom. So here you have Bohr models showing your protons and neutrons and your electrons in each shell. You're going to put them into the correct gray spaces. Again, look on your periodic table. So you can see this element over here. I'm not very zoomed in, but it should look exactly the same if you open this slideshow from the original. This is aluminum. If you're not quite sure where aluminum is on the periodic table, again, hint, proton number is your ID number. So look at 13 protons. So find element 13 on the periodic table. I'll zoom in a bit. Let's see, there's a zoom in button. Here's element 13, aluminum. So it's going to be underneath boron next to silicon in group 13, which is why I wanted you to do the group and period numbers first. So we're going to put aluminum right here underneath boron, right next to silicon. So just click and drag. And then if you can't drag it all the way, you can just pause in the middle and then click and drag it over. So with that, you would complete all the other gray areas, and that will be done with step 2. Step 3, you have these 8 red circles. So there's 8 of these. Again, you just click and drag them. I want you to indicate the valence electrons for 8 different elements. You should have 8 columns listed. So ideally, I would like you to click and drag these to show the outermost electrons, your valence electrons. Just for one row, just choose one period, and for example, I'll just click and drag this over to show the outermost valence electrons so that you can see a pattern. Part of the purpose of having you do this for the periodic table is so that you can see a pattern on the periodic table and be able to use it to find information quickly about all your elements. Because I don't want you memorizing all the elements, I want you to know the patterns, so that if I asked you, what do you know about lithium? You can say, well, lithium is in group 1, period 2. It's going to be similar to these other elements. It's going to be highly reactive because of these reasons. You should be able to answer that as we get more information. Okay, so a periodic table is a very useful tool once you understand the patterns. So that is step 3, just drag these to show the valence electrons for just one period. If you want to, you can be creative and move them around so it makes a kind of pattern, or you can just choose random numbers, but I do want you to see there's a pattern as you go up and down a periodic table, but also left to right on a periodic table. Okay, last part, step 4. This one, you should see a pattern going when you're in the same row, or same column, sorry. We're in the same column, the charge is going to be either positive or negative. So it says, write the charge the element will have once it satisfies the octet rule. The octet rule can be satisfied by either adding or subtracting electrons, or rather, either adding or taking away electrons. You either want to empty your outermost shell or complete it. So, for example, magnesium, it has 2 outermost electrons. It wants to have 8 total. Remember, we want to satisfy the octet rule. I want to have 8 total. It's too far to get to 8. I have to steal or take 6 electrons to get to 8. So it's easier for magnesium to get rid of the 2. Once I get rid of these 2 electrons, I'm going to have 2 extra protons. So that means I'm going to have a positive 2 charge because I have more positives than negatives. You can see here aluminum is a positive 3 because it has 3 electrons to give away so that it can empty this outermost shell. Now notice if you have 3 electrons, it's going to follow the same thing. It's going to empty its outermost shell by giving them away. So this would also be positive 3. So I'll go ahead and show you when it's not positive over here. 6 electrons, you just need to add 2 more electrons to get to 8. So I'm going to add 2 electrons, which means I'm going to have 2 extra negatives compared to my original neutral charge. So it's going to be negative 2 because I have 2 extra electrons to get to 8 electrons total. So all your elements want to look like your noble gases, your column 18 elements. They want to have complete outermost valence electrons. All right, so with that, you should be able to answer the questions at the bottom. I'll go ahead and give you some hints anytime it asks about patterns. So here it says, identify 1 pattern or identify 2 patterns. The easiest patterns that you can identify are what kind of pattern do you see going up and down a group or left to right in a row. You should see a pattern because, again, that's the easiest way to read the periodic table. They follow a pattern. Okay, if you have any more questions, please let me know. Otherwise, that should be it. When you are done filling in everything and your assignment is complete, if you go back to Canvas, you would just submit your assignment. Best way is to submit through Google Drive. If that doesn't work, I guess you could download it as a PDF or a PowerPoint slide and then submit it that way. But you can try Google Drive first and then just select the file from your account. When you click on select file, it will open a page that looks something like this so that you can choose the assignment. So it's kind of important that you know where to find your assignments. Hopefully it show up in recent because you just finished it. Otherwise, you'll have to either know the names, you can search for it, or you're going to have to search through your whole drive looking for it. So I hope that was helpful, and I'll see if I can improve on how to make these videos. But I'll talk to you later then.